Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the AFC East Summer Show. Tonight we have Brett from the Bills and Joe from the Patriots, a special guest star. Anthony actually joined us right before the show, and then his power cut out. Apparently, a bad thunderstorm was rolling through Chicago, and I don't know that Anthony's going to be able to join us tonight. But our rosters are set. Final 53. Oh, Anthony's back. There he is. um, we were just talking crap on the Jets, man. Yeah, so we have a great show planned for you guys tonight. Our roster cut down to 53, and we have record predictions for all of our teams, including which of our teams in the AFC East are going to make the playoffs. So we will start the show right after this. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the AFC Summit here on Nickel City Mafia. I'm joined tonight by Brett, our Bills rep, Anthony, our Jets rep, and Joe, our Patriots rep. I'm going to start with Joe here. Joe here is my best friend for the past 25 years. Now, how can a Dolphins and Patriots fan coexist as best friends for 25 years? I think we're both still kind of scratching our heads over that one. But how you doing tonight, Joe?
I'm hanging in there. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be on the show. Long-time viewer, first time actually commentating on the show. So excited to be here. Appreciate it. And looking forward to talking some football, even though my team is not going to have a great year. But I'm a realist. So excited to get into it, talk football.
It's good that you're realistic about that. You know, for 20 plus years, you lorded it over me. The Patriots were the class of the NFL, so you're kind of getting your comeuppance over here. That's kind of how I look at it. Funny story: when Joe and I first met, the Patriots were terrible, and I remember, we were going back and forth. Are you a football fan? Yeah, I'm a football fan. What team are you a fan of? He goes, I'm a Patriots fan. And I remember saying, oh, that sucks. And then Drew Bledsoe got knocked out of the game by Mo Lewis of the New York Jets, and the rest was history. That was 20 years of misery for yours truly. So we're going to move on. Brett, how you doing tonight, man?
Well, other than getting a phone call right when the show starts, I'm doing pretty good. My wife knows for certain, she's known for 5 straight years, that I go live at 7:30 with you guys on Tuesdays. And for some reason, the pregnancy brain catches in and she doesn't understand that we are actually live, even though she gets the notification every single week that we're going live. But she had to let me know that we were out of one item at Walmart and that they didn't have it. So what can I get instead of that? But other than that, man, I'm doing great. It's a beautiful week down here in Florida. We've had a little bit of rain in the evening, but nothing like Anthony saw where the power got shut off. And I think it's just because he didn't pay his electric bill. That's probably why. And he had to switch it over real quick, but you never know.
Nice. All right. Well, Anthony, you're back with us. Power looks like it just flickered off for a second. Now it's back. So how's it going tonight, man?
It's not bad. It's exciting because, now that we have roster cutdowns, we know what the roster. We don't know what the roster is going to finally look like, but we have like an idea of the direction that the team is planning to go with some of the roster positions.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested in getting into chopping it up because every team has a different thing. Just as basic observation, it does seem like there are a few of these teams in the league that are like trying to go zero running back or something.
Yeah.
Like, Cleveland Browns have like 1 running back on the roster. The Packers have like 2 that are healthy.
Yeah, I saw that. They put Marshawn Lloyd on IR, and then they put somebody else on IR today too, right?
AJ Dillon,
that's right. Yeah.
So there's some of these teams like in the NFL that look like they were on 0 running back, and then we'll see what happens over the next couple of days or so to see what trades happen. But
meanwhile, the Dolphins kept 5. So let's get right into it. I'll start with you, Anthony. What struck you the most about the players the Jets kept / didn't keep?
I gotta tell you, man, I am so freaking proud of the balls that they decided to go with to actually keep the best players and not just like have a player at every position. First time I can remember as a Jets fan that I can say. Let me take you back a couple of years. 2 years ago, the Jets kept their final 53, and they kept a couple of guys that were a little bit of a surprise. And then 11 players from the, I think, 27 that they cut that day, 11 players were claimed by other teams. Some of them walked onto other teams and were starters immediately. Thinking about like Jason Pinnock, for example, was not even good enough to be on our team, and then they cut him, and then immediately he walked onto the Giants and was their starting safety. This year, rather than doing that, they kept 10 defensive linemen. Now, it seems like a lot, and it damn sure is a lot, but like they decided to keep the best players. They only kept 2 tight ends and 0 fullbacks. Thank God they had the balls to admit that nobody needs a friggin' fullback. You don't need one. It's irrelevant. Are we going to absolutely have no fullback? No, but Jeremy Ruckert played out of the backfield last year, and we don't need Nick Bawden. We don't need 3 or 4 tight ends. We kept 2.
Yeah.
In order to facilitate this, we kept 7 wide receivers, but 3 of those wide receivers play special teams.
Right.
We kept 6 cornerbacks. That's a pretty good number. We kept 4 safeties. That's a pretty good number. In order to facilitate that, we kept 4 running backs, only 2 quarterbacks, which again is something that makes me happy. This takes balls to keep your best players and not just try to fill out the roster with the dregs of whatever it is you need to you think you need. You don't need 3 tight ends. You don't need a fullback anymore. And it just makes me happy.
Okay. Now, I saw that you guys kept Takarius McKinley, a first round.
McKinley, absolutely. The dude popped off.
Okay.
The dude popped off all preseason. I think he got like 2.5 or 3 sacks in the 3 games. 2.5 or 3.5 sacks, something like that, depending on who you ask. What stat keeps? We kept Braden McGregor. He's another guy that I brought up a couple of weeks ago. Had like 3 or 4 sacks in the preseason. We kept Leonard Taylor, who's an undrafted free agent out of Miami. Another guy with, I think, 3 or 4 sacks, like 7 pressures. Another guy I brought up.
With Taylor, he went undrafted because of character issues. It was never an issue with talent with him.
Oh, it was definitely an issue with talent. If you watch his tape last year, it was hot garbo.
I don't know, man.
Dude, the lack of effort was all over his tape.
Lack of effort, yes, but
lack of effort
and talent.
Oh, it did not look different than talent. The man got blown up every single time there was a run play. Brett Coleman made this random tweet where he's like, if you look at the 34 pass rushes where he was a 3-tech, he got pressure on some like 24% of them, which is a big number. But we're talking about 34 snaps, man. The rest of the season last year, he was horrendous. He went undrafted because his tape was hot garbo. He got a lot of press because he's a 5-star recruit. Every time those guys are 5-star recruits, even out of high school, they still get rep. They still get a lot of credit over the next couple of years or so. That said, in this system, he does seem to be playing well, at least rushing the passer. He still doesn't look very good getting off of double teams. He looks really bad even just defending the rush at all. He gets pushed back a lot. There's one snap from the last game against the Giants where he goes completely unblocked and blows up a run play, but that's it. If you get a body on him and a run play, he's immobilized. So, like, I'm not a huge fan of his all-around game, but for what he does, what we need him to do as an undrafted free agent, he does stuff that normal undrafted free agents don't do.
Okay.
So I'm happy. I'm thrilled that they kept it. Oh yeah, the shout out to Bills fan California, my man. Yes, we traded. We traded a kick returner, punt returner to the Bills, an intra-division trade. I thought it was a very nice thing of Joe Douglas to go ahead and trade this guy for basically what's going to equivocate to almost no value. This is probably a 6th-round pick in 2 years. It's a nice thing to do for the Bills because if they cut him outright, the dude gets claimed. The Bills have like waiver priority number 20-something, so they were never going to get him. And the Bills needed a returner man. So I thought it was a very nice thing that Joe Douglas did.
Well, Joe Douglas is nothing if he's not magnanimous.
I'm saying.
Brett, what do you have to say about that trade?
Yeah, it was kind of questionable for me because I looked at the roster of the Buffalo Bills, it seemed like Daquan Hardy was going to be that return man for the Bills, and unfortunately, he didn't win that job. The Bills didn't see enough out of him, and Matthew Smiley didn't like what he saw, so they decided to go out and make a trade. This is the first time since 1988 that the Buffalo Bills have made a trade with the New York Jets. That trade in 88 was a defensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills getting traded to the Jets. So it doesn't normally happen. So look back over 30 years and actually over 35 years. And it's crazy to think about that, division trades in the AFC East don't normally happen. And I just felt like this was one of those question moves, and you got to kind of look at what Brandon Beane's thinking on this. But, this is a kid that was an undrafted free agent that the Jets picked up from North Carolina, and he's going to come to the Buffalo Bills and bring some speed. And maybe that's one thing that they're looking at is a little bit more speed and somebody that can show some better skills at the defensive back position.
It's not even North Carolina. It was like North Carolina Community College, Central State Tech.
Yeah.
It was nowhere.
Yeah, it wasn't a big name school whatsoever. And
shout out to the Jets scouting staff. They are good.
All right, so Brett, any other surprises for who the Bills kept, didn't keep?
For me, not really. It just came down to the numbers. I think one person that Bills fans surprised that they kept, Casey Toohill, who is a veteran defensive end. He was one of the surprise guys that we kept over guys like Kingsley Jonathan and even Deshaun Williams, or you could say Daquan Hardy. And I wasn't really surprised by that move necessarily because he's more of the veteran. He's been a little bit slow learning the playbook, in my opinion. As Bills fan CA mentions, Buffalo Joe, as we call him, Joe Andreessen made the initial roster, another undrafted free agent. I know a lot of people don't know anything about him outside of Buffalo, but he played high school football at Lancaster High School, which is right around the corner from Orchard Park. Buffalo Joe's actually played against the general manager of the Buffalo Bills, Brandon Beane's son, in high school. So he transfers over from high school at Lancaster High to playing in the NFL in Buffalo, and he's also a University of Buffalo grad. So 2 University of Buffalo grads made the initial roster for the Buffalo Bills. Actually, let me rephrase that. 3 Bills that made the roster were from the University of Buffalo. So in a few years, we're going to have a 53-man roster consisting of all University of Buffalo guys.
I support that, Brett. That sounds like fun for the rest of the AFC East.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at what the University of Buffalo has produced, and it's a lot of good talent over the last few years. And Khalil Mack, Joe Andreessen coming into his own, and can he be that next big product that comes out of there? And you look at Jamarcus Ingram, and as many people call him, Cut Cam Lewis, and the amount of talent that's there is incredible.
All right. So the Bills kept. So the Bills they cut Ben DiNucci. Who's going to be the Bills' backup quarterback going into the season?
Mitch Trubisky. So
okay, all right.
In my opinion, that's more of a move to put DiNucci on the practice squad. I believe if there's something wrong with Mitch Trubisky, and Mitch is one of those, I'm going to say it with all due respect on the channel because I know we don't like to cuss, but he's one of those tough sons of a gun. I mean, he will definitely go out there and take off a leg or whatever the case may be. He's not the best quarterback whatsoever. He's a decent backup in his career right now, and he needs to learn a little bit more about how to become an NFL starter again. But this is a move that I think is questionable at best because he has been reported to having a torn MCL, and if he does, then the Bills have to use this strategy of keeping Mitch Trubisky on the roster while elevating 2 different practice squad quarterbacks, because the new rules for the practice squad this year are that you can only call up a quarterback or a player on the practice squad 3 times in the season. So we could see 2 different quarterbacks on the Bills practice squad to open up the year.
Wow. Okay. All right. All right. Well, Joe, I'm going to go to you, man. You're on mute right now. I'm just going to let you know that right now. Any surprises for you? Any guys that you wish the Patriots would have kept, but they didn't? Any guys that you wish they would have cut and they didn't?
Look, I'll be honest with you. The theme of this season is once again rebuild, unfortunately. But what I think we have with this squad is a lot of potential. We have a lot of opportunity. That's a huge word. Really, I mean, based on the 53 man, I can kind of look through and say these were all pretty much expected moves with a couple small exceptions. I know running back Kevin Harris, who showed out pretty well in preseason. He did a really nice job, and he really had a good camp. I could see him becoming a practice squad guy. I can also see him getting scooped up. He's very much like a Patriots type of player who's good at catching balls in the flat and making something out of nothing. He's just a really rough and tumble, will do whatever he's asked to do kind of player. So I was kind of bummed to see him leave. I mean,
was Kevin Harris the one that caught that touchdown pass from Drake?
He
May?
was with the
nice
acrobatic jump into the end zone, which was a great play. So him being cut was a little surprising, but it's also not surprising to have veterans like Antonio Gibson and JaMychal Hasty beat him out for that 3rd spot. Yeah. I mean, that's really the only surprise from my end. Really excited about this wide receiver core. A lot of rookies, Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, and Keyshawn Butte, who's technically not a rookie, but he didn't really see the field very much last year. He got hurt early on, was a healthy scratch down the stretch. So really, really excited to see what those guys can do on the offensive side of the ball, especially with Kendrick Bourne on the PUP list to start the season. I mean, it's all up from here. So we'll see what happens with our 3 new quarterbacks, on the roster now. So excited to see how those guys ball out. And in my opinion, it's just a matter of time before May sees that field starting.
Well, who's going to start week 1 for you, Joe?
I would imagine Jacoby Brissett, but I mean, would not be shocked if he gets hurt week 1. The way our O-line is just complete and utter trash. So it's going to be it's going to be a horror story pretty much every week if Drake does start. To watch him run around for his life essentially behind that line that is just so bad right now.
Isn't that the fear though? Like Drake has to play in that behind that terrible offensive line. Like the whole point of sitting him is to avoid that. And if Brissett gets hurt immediately, it seems like I'd rather throw Joe Milton out there, let him get beat up for a while.
It would shock me to the core if and when I think it's a matter of when Brissett goes down with an injury. That they pick Joe Milton to start over Drake. That's not what the fans want, and I don't think that's the best player, in that position for the Patriots. So we'll see what happens. This year's really fun for us Patriots fans because we have no idea what to expect. We know we're going to lose a lot of games, but in terms of the product on the field, we don't really know what we have yet.
That's fair. So if you had your choice, and this is something I've asked every Patriots rep that's been on the show. If you had your choice, how would the starts for the Patriots quarterback shake out this year? Would Brissett start the entire year? Would Brissett start the first half and then Drake May comes in for him? How would you ideally like to see this shake out?
Like I said, we're going to lose a lot of games. And I think initially the blame's going to always go back to the quarterback from the offensive side of the ball, right? And if Drake sits the whole season, I'm okay with that. What I won't be okay with is us getting blown out week in, week out behind a very ineffective Jacoby Brissett. I know he's got that terrible O-line, but at the end of the day, the fans, very much like we wanted to see Zappy out there when Mac Jones was really, really struggling last season. We were just tired of watching the same play in and out, week in, week out, and just not able to get in the end zone. So if we see that similar dynamic with Brissett and Drake May, especially with Joe Milton in the chamber as well, we're going to want to see something else, even if it means still losing with a different guy under center, So we'll see. I mean, ideally, he does sit out the whole season and learn and grow and kind of understand all right, this is how it is to be in the National Football League. But I don't think he's going to have that luxury. I think he's going to have to go in and play.
I think I would agree with you, Joe. We talked about this last week, Anthony and I, and Brett. We talked about this, and we all said, in an ideal world, Drake May just sits this season. He sits, he learns, he doesn't get murdered behind this offensive line that the Patriots have, and you kind of just let Jacoby Brissett be that sacrificial lamb. That's the ideal scenario, but again, the ideal scenario rarely plays out in the NFL. And for a team like the Patriots that are so in flux in such a rebuilding type of mode, it's unrealistic to say that we're not going to see Drake May this season. That's kind of how I feel about it. So I'm going to get into the Dolphins real quick. The Dolphins so Anthony was saying that the Jets kept two tight ends, no fullbacks. The Dolphins kept a fullback, Alec Ingold. He deserves to be there. If any fullback in the NFL deserves to be on a roster, it's Alec Ingold. And they kept 4 tight ends, which I was surprised about. They kept Tanner Conner, Julian Hill, Jonnu Smith, and Durham Smythe.
You kept Tanner Conner?
We kept Tanner Conner. Cut Jody Fortson. And I think it was between Tanner Conner and Jody Fortson. Now, Tanner Conner did show out in week 1 of the preseason, and then he got hurt. So I was surprised to see Tanner Conner make the roster. The Dolphins also only kept 4 wide receivers. So the only wide receivers the Dolphins kept were Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Malik Washington, and Braxton Berrios. Our boy Braxton Berrios, Anthony, made the team.
I mean,
50 reception guy, baby. No, but yeah, so Braxton Berrios was kept mostly for his return ability, but River Craycraft, he landed on the IR designated to return. He had an upper body injury in the week 2 game. After he caught a touchdown pass from Tua, he went out with an upper body injury. And they cut Eric Ezekama, which I was not thrilled about, to be honest. I think that there are more moves coming for the Dolphins on the wide receiver front. I think that they're not done. They're not done as far as wide receiver goes. I can see them picking up another guy and maybe sending somebody to the practice squad. I'm not entirely certain what their plan is yet. They also cut Blake Ferguson, their long snapper, and I can't imagine that's the long-term plan either, because Blake Ferguson was one of the better long snappers in the NFL last year. There's no way they're not going to.
A lot of these guys and their veterans, they're just trying to sneak them out of the practice squad or cut them for a couple of days, knowing that they're going to cut somebody else or put who's on the IR or whatever. That's a comment being cut's a little bit weird, but I get it.
Yeah. So Blake Ferguson, my eyebrows raised a little bit, like, what the hell are they thinking? But then I kind of came back down to earth and realized, okay, that's not how it's going to actually go. They're going to bring Blake Ferguson back. They're going to have to bring on another wide receiver. They can't go into the season with 4 wide receivers. That's not how things work. And they can't go into the season with 4 tight ends either. I mean, Tanner Conner, it's a nice success story. I know Mike McDaniel likes him a lot, but to say that he's deserving of being on the 53-man roster, I think, is a bit of an overstatement. Dolphins also kept the man with the best name in football, Storm Duck, undrafted rookie free agent out of Louisville. I think I thought he deserved to make the roster. He made it over Nick Needham, who was another undrafted free agent out of UTEP. Dolphins had the last couple of years. Nick Needham tore his. Now, he was one of the best slot corners in football, and that's not hyperbole. He was one of the best slot corners in football before he tore his Achilles back in 2022. Came back in 2023, and he had lost a lot of his burst, and I don't know that it all came back to him this offseason. So he was one of the guys that I wanted to see get better and hope maybe he can return to form, but he didn't, and instead the Dolphins signed Storm Duck to be his replacement. Surprises were there were quite a few surprises, like the Dolphins keeping 4 tight ends, like the Dolphins keeping 5 running backs on the roster. The Dolphins kept Alec Ingold, and then they kept Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright, and Jeff Wilson, cutting Chris Brooks. Now that's a controversial move. I know a lot of Dolphins fans who wanted to see Jeff Wilson make the roster. Chris Brooks make the roster over Jeff Wilson. I personally wanted Jeff Wilson to make the roster over Chris Brooks. I know Jeff Wilson is not a great running back, but he does everything adequately enough, and he's a guy that Mike McDaniel is comfortable with moving forward. Aside from that, this is going to be another season where the Dolphins need to stay healthy. They need to get some more luck on the injury front, because if the 53-man roster has highlighted anything to me, it's that they are lacking in depth in a lot of areas, especially along the offensive line, where they're starting off with basically their interior offensive line. They're all going to be backups, is what it looks like right now. Aaron Brewer is injured at center. Isaiah Wynn is on the PUP list, so he's going to be out the first 4 weeks of the season. And that means Liam Eichenberg, who is going to be the starting right guard, has to move over to center. So the Dolphins starting guards are likely to be Robert Jones and Lester Cotton. Not ideal for a team that needs to protect their quarterback. Not ideal at all. So let's look at the chat right now and see what everybody has to say out there. So see, Nickel City Mafia Italians have been good quarterback. Forget DeVito. Who's behind the nickel logo? I'm not sure what that means.
The Nickel City Mafia logo. That's me in the chat, guys, just to let you know.
Okay.
So they're asking who's in the chat, who's controlling Nickel City Mafia's form. So,
Bills fan CA, 4 wide receivers. Yeah, 4 wide receivers for the Dolphins. They're going to have to add somebody else, Mike. I'm not sure who that somebody's going to be. I'm sure roster cut downs are happening. The Dolphins are going to add somebody.
Juju Smith-Schuster, it's incoming.
you signed with
one of the worst contracts in recent history for us. Don't even bring him up, Anthony. Too soon. It's too soon.
So every team needs wide receivers. The Jets hog them all.
He kept 7, man. Mad Chatter, we root for Adrian Martinez here. Yeah, no, Adrian Martinez is fine. I think they're just going to sneak him out of the practice squad. It's going to be one of those practice squad quarterbacks they'll elevate if they need, but
Bills need to try to get TMJ. TMJ, who's that?
That's Terrence Marshall Jr.
Okay.
Yeah. In the comment before, I mentioned some of the wide receivers that were cut today that could get claimed. Noah Brown, Brandon Johnson, Terrence Marshall Jr. All these guys were cut, had pretty good preseasons. Brandon Johnson, one of those guys that I was shocked was cut by the Denver Broncos. But Sean Payton had so many different wide receivers to choose from. Also, Tim Patrick coming back from various injuries over the last couple of years. This is one of the most loaded wide receiver rooms. And to see a guy like Brandon Johnson leave the Broncos, he's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to be a star wherever he goes. And don't be surprised. I'm going to tell you this right now, but don't be surprised if he has a career year. I can see him going over 500 yards easily today or this season. So it looks like we did lose Keith. I like to say Philly fan. I was trying to say that Philly Fins fan. It's just so hard to say, but it looks like we did lose him for a second. It seems like some type of technical issue.
We'll get him back up to it.
But yeah, let's go around the room. There he is. He's back now.
Yeah. Sorry about that, boys. Yeah, no, as far as you mentioned Tim Patrick, Brett. He's already been signed by the Lions. And he was a guy that I was actually looking for the Dolphins, because I knew that they were going to be weak at wide receiver when they cut when I knew River Craycraft was going to the IR, when I knew that Eric Ezekama wasn't going to make the team, I knew that they needed another wide receiver, and I was kind of looking at Tim Patrick as a guy that could be a cheap option coming off of various injuries the last couple seasons. Kind of would have been nice, but man, there's just the injuries are already rearing their ugly heads for the Dolphins. They're starting off with Isaiah Wynn on the IR. They're starting off with Odell Beckham on the PUP. Odell Beckham, Isaiah Wynn, Bradley Chubb on the PUP. It's just, man, Dolphins, you stay away from Andy Isabella. Hey, you know what? He's a candidate. He's a candidate, Mad Chatter. They're going to look into all options in the coming weeks.
Another name that I didn't mention is Isaiah Hodgins from the New York Giants. That's another name that had a good year a couple of seasons ago and a little bit of a breakout year, and that could be another name that the Dolphins go after.
Yeah, that would be wacky to me. Isaiah Hodgins, like the Giants don't have any wide receivers, and they're cutting a wide receiver.
Yeah.
That's not good, man. The Panthers have no wide receivers, and they're cutting wide receivers. Noah Brown would make sense because he had at least a couple nice fantasy weeks a couple of years ago. But, like, some of these dudes,
Noah Brown.
Like 6 weeks ago when people were making the argument for Chase Claypool or Marquez Valdez-Scantling. These guys are terrible for a reason. They're not on rosters right now. They're bad.
Yeah. Noah Brown was also in a really crowded wide receiver room. Down in Houston. Noah Brown was also in a really crowded wide receiver room down in Houston.
He was, and I think Noah Brown's going to catch on with a team that has a fairly high waiver priority. I could see one of the teams in the top 10, top 15 waiver priorities picking him up. I would have a tough time imagining he sneaks all the way into the late 20s where the Bills are sitting, or the 20s where the Dolphins are sitting. I would
probably agree with that, which, is what it is. I'm hoping the Dolphins get somebody serviceable. That's all. Somebody who can play a little special teams. A guy who can be a gunner on special teams. Somebody like his name's escaping me. Brett. He's on the Bills.
As far as what
played for the Dolphins, now he's on the Bills.
Oh man, I'm gonna draw a blank. I can't even think of it. I know who you're talking about too. I'm drawing a blank.
Well, either way, let's move on here. We're gonna go into win-loss predictions here. Who we see winning the division, who we see making the playoffs in the AFC East. Joe, I'll start with you, since we're fairly certain the Patriots are finishing fourth. Who do we see winning the AFC East? What records do you see them having? And who's making the playoffs?
Okay, well, it really does pain me after so many years of success and winning Super Bowls and winning more Super Bowls that I'm in a position to actually say this. The Patriots are finishing dead last in the AFC East, and it's not even close. So couple ways to back that up. Everybody, the writing's on the wall here. This is a rebuilding team. This is a team that is starting fresh, new quarterbacks, new head coach, new culture, new everything, right? So this year is going to be a rough one for us fans. Our schedule is really tough this year. That doesn't help. We've got to play the three of your teams twice, and they're not the pushovers they once were. And it's going to be rough. We have a lot of figuring things out, and a lot of players that haven't played with each other yet. Our defense is still really stout. Even with the loss of arguably our best player in Judon. However, we have a severe lack of talent at stopping the rush. You have Godshaw back there, who's pretty much the only serviceable. Mad Chatter's chiming in there, 3-14. Not far off, my man. I have New England at 5 wins, and that is an optimistic number. I have New England at 5 wins, 12 losses for the season. Not a lot of wins in that column. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough watch, but I do think there's going to be moments where, we keep games closer than people think. And we do have talent on both sides of the ball. It's just not enough to really even get close to 500 this year. So I have New England 5-12. New York, with Rodgers coming back, I know there's a lot of elements in play there, a lot of unknowns in that regard. How is his other Achilles going to hold up? I have them at 8 wins and 9 losses, which is one of their best seasons they've had in recent memory. I think Aaron obviously catapults them up there but not enough to really kind of make the playoffs, if you will.
They had 7 wins last year with Zach Wilson.
7 wins, okay, not bad.
So you expect Aaron Rodgers to add 1?
Yes.
Cool.
Maybe this is my bias and my hatred of the New York Jets coming into play.
They'll probably not.
But we'll see. Buffalo, you're next. 11 wins, 6 losses. They will clinch a wild card berth. They are not as good as they were last year. They've got worse in the offseason. You lost you lost Diggs to the Texans, and you lost Matt Milano for arguably probably the season, one of your best defensive players. It's going to be tough. The guys, they're not there to replace those 2 studs. So we'll see what Buffalo comes up with. I do think they're going to play a lot of close games with Miami in New York, especially. They're going to steamroll us. So we'll see. And Miami, I hate to say it, Keith, I know you probably are cherishing this moment, but Miami wins the division. 13 wins and 4 losses. They win the division, and it's really not. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. And pardon me while I go throw up now. That was tough to get through. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and that's kind of a realistic outlook for me and Patriots fans. And if they don't have this outlook, they're just delusional, and they don't really know football. So we'll see, guys. I'll pass it over.
All right, fair enough. 13 wins for the Dolphins. That sounds nice. I would love that. I'm gonna go next here because I've been critical of the Jets this offseason. I've been critical of Aaron Rodgers. I've questioned whether or not Aaron Rodgers' head is still in the game. I still do. That being said, I have the Jets winning the division 11-6. I think that they have enough. I think their defense is still a top-flight defense. And I think Aaron Rodgers gives them enough to win this division. That's going to be a murderer's row kind of division. I don't see any team in this division winning 12 games or 13 games as Joe so generously gave the Dolphins. I just think this is going to be such a dogfight all season long. So I see the Jets winning the division at 11-6. I see the Dolphins and Bills tying at 10-7. I see 10 wins for the Dolphins on the schedule. For the Dolphins, as far as the Dolphins are concerned, they have all of the skill position players you could possibly want. On the outside, they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They have Jonnu Smith. They have a 3-headed monster at running back, and I am including Jalen Wright in that. They have Tua, who's the ultimate point guard for all of these guys. And then you have, on defense, you have guys like Jalen Ramsey and Javon Holland and Kendall Fuller. And the closer you get to the line of scrimmage, the weaker the Dolphins become. And that's my issue with the Miami Dolphins, is that along the offensive line, they didn't do enough to address their holes. Along the defensive line, they lost Christian Wilkins, and that's going to be a bigger loss than people give them credit for. They still have Zach Sealer. They brought in Calais Campbell. I understand all that. But the Dolphins have the look and feel of a team that sat down to dinner and skipped over the meat and potatoes and went right for the dessert. Went right for the cupcakes and the ice cream and all that stuff. That's what the Dolphins – they had the look and feel of a team that did that to me. So in spite of the fact they have all the talent in the world on the outside, the skill positions, I don't think they have enough in the trenches to win this division, unfortunately. I'm going to touch on this on my show on the new channel tomorrow night. And shameless plug, but the Fins Forecast channel, we're going live tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And the guys are going to debate this very thing that I'm talking about tonight. I think they have a much rosier outlook on the Dolphins season than I do. But 10 wins feels like the Dolphins. I think their ceiling is probably 12 and their floor is probably like 7. So I'm going down the middle. I'm saying 10 wins. I think the Dolphins are going to make the wild card. And I think the Bills are also a team that has lost a little bit. And I think that they're going to feel the loss of Stephon Diggs. They're going to feel the fact they don't have the best wide receivers. A Keith U. I'm not sure what that means, Matt Chatter. But yeah, Eagles cut Paris Campbell. That's another wide receiver the Dolphins could pick up. Understood. I think the Bills are going to finish just on the outside looking in. I think the Dolphins are going to get the last wild card spot. And the Patriots, I see them as a 5-win team, 5-12 for the Patriots. Anthony, I'm going to save you for last because I can see you stewing over there. So Brett, how do you see this division shaking out this season?
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw a curveball, okay? I'm going to throw it over to somebody that I get along with sometimes, but I think that he deserves his respect right now to throw it over to you guys. So I'm going to go down to my man, Anthony, and let him chime in and give his perspective of what he feels like. Because I know he has something brewing in that head, and the pot's stirring right now, and I can tell it's getting heated. It's about ready to boil over. So let's have him go now.
All right, Anthony.
All right. I'll start at the bottom. It's going to be the Patriots. I don't think they're bad enough to win like 2 games. I think it's going to be probably closer to like 4-6. I think that defense is too good. I think that Gerard Mayo is going to get a little bit out of that team. I think the schedule is pretty garbo for the AFC East. We get a lot of crap teams. So like there's a couple games where it's just going to win. And then the Patriots always like muscle out a game or 2 against the division. So I think it's probably going to be no, I'm not mad. Probably like 4 or 6 wins for the Patriots. I think next up is going to be the Bills, somewhere around 8-9, 9-8, something like that. The more I look at this roster, the more the holes in it are just stacking up. It's going to be a rough year, I think, for the Bills. Next up, I think it's going to be the Dolphins, somewhere around 10 or 11 wins, probably closer to 11 wins. Again, there's a lot of holes at the bottom of the roster. The offensive line still needs a little bit of work. But you're just going to blow some teams out. There's just going to be, like, games that, like, the other team just can't show up.
Yeah. And that happened last year, Anthony. We saw that happen last year. Then we saw them fold in December again. December and January.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really pick when you're going to win or lose games, but like,
no.
There's
they had 70 on the Broncos and then lose a 2-score lead to the Titans on Monday Night Football. Like that's the kind of team the Dolphins were last year. And that's the kind of team I see them being again this year.
I mean, I can't disagree with you entirely. I do wonder because there's going to be some trouble with I think there's going to be a little bit of trouble in the secondary for you again. If not worse this year. I think there's going to be some issues with the interior offensive line. You really still haven't fortified the wide receivers behind Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill misses a couple more games again, gets his foot stepped on or something like that. Now it's Jalen Waddle, and then who else? Devon A. Chain missed some time. Mostert, you got really lucky with him. He didn't really miss any time last year, and he's missed time throughout his career, and he's 31, which is a year older than what he was last year at 30, which is already old for running back. So, I can see they're running into a couple problems, but you're still, like I said, going to blow some teams out. So I think 10 wins, maybe 11 is probably about right. And I think the Jets are placed somewhere in the 12 to 13 wins with an upside maybe from there. I saw a stat where Aaron Rodgers since 2018 is 35-2 when the defense holds a team to 20 points or less. That's what's going to happen most of the time. Teams aren't going to score a lot of points on us. They haven't scored a lot of points on us for the last 3 years. If Aaron Rodgers is going to go into every single game with a running game that's going to work because they've invested heavily in the running game, with an offensive line that's not terrible, with the ability to throw it to Garrett Wilson, I struggle to see why we wouldn't win 12 or 13 games. So I think we win the division, and I think we fight for the number 1 seed.
Okay. Like I said, I can say it. I think it is fair to question where Aaron Rodgers' head is at. I don't think I'm being unfair or speaking out of turn when I say that. But if Aaron Rodgers is fully invested in football, if he's fully invested in the New York Jets, if he stays healthy, the Jets are going to be serious players in the AFC. The Jets have a great shot of winning the AFC East. I've said this the past 2 seasons. The Jets have been competent quarterback play away from being serious contenders in the AFC. You know, they've had Zach Wilson. They've tried Zach Wilson out there. By the way, I love Zach Wilson's reaction to hearing that Bo Nix was a starter. Did you guys hear that?
No, what did he say?
He actually was really complimentary of Bo Nix. He said how happy he was for him, how hard he worked. And Jarrett
What did
Stidham.
Lisa Wilson say? His mom.
What's that?
What did Lisa Wilson say? His mom.
Well, I'd like to know what Bo Nix's mom had to say about it all. But and Jarrett Stidham had kind of an opposite reaction where it's like, I think I'm a starter in the NFL and I'm disappointed. And
do you think he really believes that?
It's like, oh, Jarrett, you're adorable.
Nobody but Jarrett Stidham and his mother think that he's a starter in the NFL. He's terrible. He was by far the worst quarterback in there in the Denver games. He was terrible.
He was.
He was unplayable. I think he was 3 interceptions, like 51% completion percentage. Like, this is preseason, bro. You're on backups.
Yep. He was worse than Zach Wilson, and that's
a lot worse. Zach Wilson was the best of the quarterbacks.
Yeah. So, but Bo Nix got the starting job, and Zach Wilson seemed happy for him. But Zach Wilson actually seems like a really good dude, a dude I wouldn't mind cheering for now that he's not a New York Jet. And look, I wish him all the best. I wish him the best luck moving forward, as long as he doesn't go back to the Jets. But getting back to the New York Jets, their current roster, I've said it before, I've said it again. The Jets were competent quarterback play away from being real contenders in the AFC last year and the year before. And now you bring in a future first ballot Hall of Famer. Competency should be his baseline. That should be the least of what you expect from Aaron Rodgers. Should be. Mm-hmm. If that's what you get, the Jets will probably win the AFC East this year. That's my thought. Brett, I'm going to throw it to you now. You obviously have some thoughts here as well.
I do. Well, first of all, I want to save the best for last. The 4-time AFC East champions in a row. So that's why I saved it for best for last. So I'm going to start with the Patriots. And the Patriots are one of those teams that, I mean, they're a question mark at best. It depends on the quarterback play, but you guys have some wide receivers that I like there. Fortin, I like a lot. He is one of the guys that I've been watching quite a bit. And I think that Jalen Polk is going to be one of those guys that comes in and takes the league by storm as a rookie. You also have a couple of really good tight ends with Austin Hooper, as well as I can never think of his name. Every time I think of the tight end room, Hunter Henry. But when I think of the Patriots, it's just one of those teams that, you know, can they get the ball down the field and get past the 50-yard line? That's what I see. And, you know, it's sad to say, I mean, Joe, I respect you. I appreciate you for coming on, but, I mean, I'm going to put them in last place. It's one of those, you know, just like we're going around the Wheel of Fortune board, and you're going to be the first one out, man. I mean, I'm going to have to eliminate you first. And I'd say the Patriots go, and this is going to surprise people, but 6-11. I'm going to call it 6-11. I think they're one of those teams that Gerard Mayo is not going to take any BS. He's going to have the team ready to go, and it just comes down to, can they put up 17 points in a game? And if they can, they're going to get a couple of wins. But the Patriots defense always comes out, lights out every single year. I think they're going to have a few games that they're going to win that are going to surprise people because opponents are going to take them lightly. And that's where they come out and they get some wins. Third place, man, this is going to be tough. Okay. Am I going to put my Buffalo Bills in third place, or the Jets, or the Dolphins? Here's how it's going to go. Okay. And this is why I know you guys hate me for being a home wrecker and everything. I love my Bills so much.
Brett, you're not a home. I hope you're not a home wrecker. You're a homer.
I might be a homer, but I could be a home wrecker today. But I'm not going to put my Bills in third place. I'm not going to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Hide your moms, fellas.
Here's what I'm going to say. Okay. The Jets are going to start off the season slow. Here's why I'm going to say it. Aaron Rodgers has been out of football for a year. Okay. You're going up against the 49ers week 1. That's a tough game. Okay. You have the 49ers defense that's one of the better defenses in the NFL. I'm not saying that the Jets are not going to win the division or anything, or they can compete for the division, but I think they're going to come off of a few losses this season early on. Rodgers isn't going to be the same Aaron Rodgers that was MVP a few seasons ago to begin the year. But I think they're going to make a comeback later in the season. I have them finishing in third place at 12-5. Okay. Now, when I say that, Anthony, I think it's going to be a tough competition for first place. I think the Buffalo Bills are one of those teams that last season was one where, Stephon Diggs in the second half of the season was absolutely dog crap. And I'm going to say that with all due respect. Diggs did not want to be in Buffalo. Something happened during the season. Somebody said something. Something happened. The coaches got on him. He did not want to play in Buffalo. If you look at his route running ability, the second half of the season, he was not running routes to full strength. We already missed 8 games of him. Khalil Shakir came in, took care of the main load. The Bills ran the ball quite a bit with James Cook. I think people are underestimating what the wide receiver room can do for the Buffalo Bills. You got Keon Coleman coming in. He's one of those big-name wide receivers that if he becomes an electric wide receiver and can be one of those guys that goes and has 1,000 yards, like Odell Beckham Jr. in his first season, and he can be a punt returner and just be one of those electric guys, this is easily going to be a 12-win team. Look at the other wide receivers that were on the roster last season, okay? Besides Stephon Diggs in the first half of the year, we had nobody else that was having more than 5 catches a game. Gabe Davis stunk. He was hit or miss, back and forth. Trent Sherfield was one of those guys that we were excited to see. Didn't do anything. Daquan Hardy absolutely couldn't get anything done on the field. You put different wide receivers in here with Mac Hollins, who I'm not saying it's going to be an excellent wide receiver whatsoever, but I'm saying more there's more of a line than having somebody that goes for 5 catches or 10 catches one game and 0 catches the next week. I think there's more of 3 catches, 4 catches a game. You look at MVS, who, if he can get going, that's just an added piece. Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox coming in here. If they can stay healthy, both of them, that helps Josh Allen so much. And I think Dalton Kincaid's going to have 1,200 yards easily. That's a guy that I want to stash in every single league in fantasy. Add into the defense. You guys mentioned Matt Milano being out this year. This is what I have to say for Matt Milano being out. Dorian Williams enters the second season. He started most of the games when Matt Milano was out last year. He's coming into his second year, and this is just one of the guys that I think is going to take another step.
The mad chatter. Just listening to Brett rattle off our crap wide receivers.
Hey, you can say what you want, Mad Chatter. I'm going to say this right now, okay? Mad Chatter, you can say what you want, but Khalil Shakir, as Bills Fan CA is going to mention here, Khalil Shakir, he was training with Eric Moulds in the offseason. I think he's going to be better. Curtis Samuel, another wide receiver who had 800 yards per season, has been consistent throughout his career. You look at like I said, the Bills wide receiver room was one of the worst in the NFL last season in terms of everybody behind Stephon Diggs. But going back to Matt Milano.
But at least you had Stephon Diggs, and that's the problem. You don't even have Stephon Diggs.
It doesn't matter.
it would be hard to argue that like any of the wide receivers are better than like Gabe Davis.
I'm going to say
I
this.
don't think any of them are. I think they're all pretty much some level of like not that great.
Here's my
every highlight that we've seen from Keon Coleman in the preseason is him running routes either against a coach or in his underwear. Like there hasn't even been like that AD Mitchell, he takes the top off the defense 70 yards down the field.
Doesn't have to be him. It doesn't have to be him. The difference between what Buffalo had last season is one wide receiver that was
really good, and then
he was good in the beginning of the season. Yes, he was, but in the second half, he was a diva, and he wanted
coordinators. They stopped throwing it to him.
And let Brent finish his thought, Anthony.
Yeah, well, let me say this, okay? Because I understand what you're coming from. Stephon Diggs demanded the ball so much in the second half of the season. He was a distraction on and off the field with the tweets and everything else. This is now a Josh Allen that comes into the NFL in his 7th year, doesn't have anybody that's chirping in his ear trying to demand the ball. Josh Allen's going to play more free. That helps out the whole entire offense, getting the ball spread around, which is what Josh Allen loves to do. When he spreads the ball around, it's a beautiful thing. And you look at back to the playoffs a few years ago when he was going against the Patriots. He threw the ball to 9 different receivers in that game. Tight ends, wide receivers, running backs in that game. That was the best game that he ever had. And I think when Stephon Diggs was on the field, he was trying to force the ball to one wide receiver, and it hurt the offense. Now you have James Cook, who's emerging a lot more. You have Ray Davis in the backfield. You have all these different wide receivers, tight ends, and you have a defense that has some young players that are going to develop into bigger name players. That's why I think that they're going to go 12-5. But I think that the Miami Dolphins are going to compete for the division. I'm not giving you the division. I think it's going to be a 12-5 tie with it coming down to the last week of the season, and the Buffalo Bills get first place in the division with a tie of 12-5. But the overall record for the division with AFC wins is going to be the Buffalo Bills getting that. And the Miami Dolphins come in at 12-5 with a bunch of injuries. As always, Tua misses a few games, and it hurts Keith. He cries into the offseason after becoming the 6th seed in the playoffs, and there you have it. The Miami Dolphins lose in the first round of the playoffs. The Bills lose in the divisional round, as always, like they normally do. And it hurts me to say it, but that's where I think the Bills are going to lie. Another season of not getting far into the playoffs, but I think they win the division for 5 straight times just to prove a point that Josh Allen is still the best quarterback in the AFC East.
Well, first of all, Brett, I rarely cry over the Dolphins. I weep. It's more manly. All right. Anthony, you had some thoughts on what Brett was saying. I'll let you intimate them.
I mean, he said we're going to start off slow. All right, we do have the 49ers. That's going to be a tough game. It's away. And then what? We lose to the Titans?
No.
And then the Broncos? And then the Patriots? Like, what are we, if we start, you're saying we're starting off slow, but like those first 3 out of 4 look pretty strong for us. At the very least, we're 3-1. And then we have what? The Vikings, who are still starting Sam Darnold. I'm not seeing it when you're saying we're starting off slow, man.
I think you're going to lose to the Broncos. I'm going to say that right now. The reason why I'm saying that, you can say the quarterback play with, Bo Nix and everything is going to be one of the worst. But when you look at Sean Payton, the amount of points that he puts up for an offense, he has the most points put up overall in the last 10 years by an offense.
You want to see those years where he was starting Taysom Hill?
Yeah, I know.
They weren't so good. There's a reason he retired. Those weren't good teams, man.
I think the Jets are
coming out of the tunnel.
I think the schedule just kind of dictates that the Jets are going to get off to a fast start just because of how crap their schedule is going to be after the San Francisco game. They do have an easy schedule, as do the Dolphins, for that matter. Dolphins have, the Jaguars and the Bills, and then they kind of get into that mid-season lull kind of situation that they had last year, where they're playing teams that are not up to snuff. And then the Dolphins have 6 games against teams that made the playoffs last year, or the Jets, who should make the playoffs this year. Their last 6 games are going to be that's going to determine, in my eyes, not only the Dolphins' season, but I think the rest of the division. If the Dolphins can split against the Jets, maybe that'll help them maybe get an edge over the Jets. If the Dolphins can split against the Bills for the first time, well, they didn't split with the Bills last year. They got swept by the Bills last year. If the Dolphins can split with the Bills, I think what we're all looking at here is, I think we're the 3 of us, not Joe. Sorry, Joe. But what the 3 of us are looking for here is for our teams to go 4-2 in the division. I think that's our goal. 4-2, 5-1, 3-3 isn't going to be good enough, because we're all expecting to sweep the Patriots. So we want to split against, our opponents. So if the Dolphins can go 4-2, if the Dolphins can, dare I say, go 5-1, then that's going to give them a big leg up in the division. Same with the Bills, same with the Jets. I think the point here is that we're all kind of going back and forth about, well, the Jets are deficient in this, or the Bills are deficient in that, the Dolphins. I think there is a razor-thin margin between the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins. Enough of a razor-thin margin that it's a real debate topic as to who's going to take this division, as to who's going to make the playoffs out of this division. Brett, I'm not a fan of your wide receivers, and I'm not, and I think you got better without Stephon Diggs, because I think Stephon Diggs was a distraction. I think he was a diva. I think he was a guy who Josh Allen felt compelled to force feed targets to.
Yep.
And I think without that, that'll free up Josh Allen. But the problem is, who is Josh Allen throwing the ball to now? Dalton Kincaid. Okay, fine. I'll give you Dalton Kincaid. Beyond that, you're gonna tell me Khalil Shakir. You're gonna tell me Keon Coleman. You're gonna tell me Dawson Knox. None of these guys are going to strike.
Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Yes, none of these guys are striking fear in the defenses.
I don't think it's going to be any of those guys. Mostly, I think it's going to be a mixture of, Curtis Samuel in there, and a little bit of a sprinkle with Coleman and even Shakir in there. But remember this, Joe Brady is one of the best offensive coordinators at throwing the ball to the running backs as well. So James Cook is going to get the heavy share of runs, but he's also going to get some passes out of the backfield. You add in Ray Davis, who I know that Anthony thinks that the running back that the Jets got is better, and you may be right. Early on, he's having a great preseason for you guys.
What are we talking about? Like, I haven't talked about Ray. I've said Ray Davis's name maybe once in my entire life. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the running back that's on the Jets. You're saying
Breece Hall's good. I don't know what you're talking about. Breece Hall's better than Ray Davis.
No. I'm not saying Breece Hall. There's the backup running back that you guys have. The rookies that you have.
Two of them. You mean Braylon Allen, or do you mean
Braylon Allen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Braylon Allen.
What do you want?
You said that Braylon Allen is, in your opinion, better than Ray Davis. And
when did I say this?
You said it in the Discord chat. So, but
I'm going to get to Trey's comment here. Keith, the Dolphins have $37 million in cap. How's that razor thin? Trey, the Dolphins need that cap space to roll over into next season, because they have contracts to pay out next season. They have Javon Holland they still have to pay. They have Jalen Phillips they still want to pay. They have enough guys that they need to pay. They have Tua's contract kind of starting to hit the books next year. Their cap situation looks good on paper, $37 million. That number is going to disappear come next offseason. They need every cent of that.
Over the cap next year by $37 million. Currently, they have $23 million. Like, they have to roll over every dime they have, and then restructure for them to have any ability to even get under the cap next year.
Exactly. So, going out and spending right now, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're kind of just mortgaging your future for your present. And I think the Dolphins are towing a fine line right now regarding that. Now, as far as Braylon Allen and Dre Davis goes, neither of us knows what what either of those guys is going to be. I think the bottom line is that there are question marks surrounding all of our teams.
We're talking about backup running backs at this point. If we're arguing over who has a better backup running back, let's move on to the next topic.
Joe, you've been quiet for a while. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I'll just say this. After hearing, we're going to sweep the Patriots. We hope to sweep the Patriots. Let me just give you a little education on just how weird our particular divisions. I've always been a proponent of division games are weird. Anything can happen in division games because of how frequently these these four teams play each other. So last year we had a measly 4 wins. 2 of them were in this division. We beat the Jets and we beat the Buffalo Bills in that late game comeback in October. But we also lost to the Dolphins in week 2. We lost by a touchdown. Okay. The Jets blew us out at the end of the season. We lost also to the Bills in week 17 by 6 points. So I just like to tell you guys that don't count your wins against the Patriots just yet. I think we're going to play scrappy. We're going to play tough, tight games. And I wouldn't be shocked if we split with all 3 of the teams in this room right now. So I'm just excited to play spoiler. That's all we have to look forward to. Okay. All right. But that said, don't be surprised if we split with all 3 teams.
I agree. The Patriots suck. I hate playing the Patriots.
I
hate playing the teams that are division. The Dolphins randomly win games. Like, it's a terrible division.
The division is weird. The division games are always weird.
Even during Tom Brady's heyday, the Patriots have traveled down to Miami and wins were not a given. No matter what the records were, you can throw them out. Wins were not a given in Miami when Tom Brady traveled.
The Dolphins when they won that game with the Wildcat. Remember the Wildcat game?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's so legendary in the history of the NFL of one team just doing something the other team wasn't prepared for.
Yeah, and Bill Belichick was unable to adjust to it, which is really wild for Bill Belichick, honestly.
He hated playing Miami in Miami. He would talk about it, how he could just not win in Miami. And it was frustrating as Patriots fans to know every year we go down to Florida and we are not going to win the game. I don't know if it was the weather, the humidity, whatever. The game plan at that point. But what I will say is you talk about these margin thin, lines of victory or loss here, Keith. I think the Patriots will play spoiler in some of those margins and really kind of shake things up, especially at the end of the year. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting to see how these games play out. I'm always excited.
Against the Bills in the last 6. The Patriots have like the week 14 bye or something, week 13 bye or something. And then they have 2 games almost back against the Bills. The Jets have almost the same thing against the Dolphins. We don't face the Dolphins till like week 13, and we have 2 games in like 4.
Yeah.
Like,
not looking forward to that.
That's not usual. I feel like most of the time they're bookends. You play in the very early of the season, you play in the very end of the season. At least that's for New England. But I feel like
I agree. That's usually what it is. But like
what it is. Yeah.
When you talk about the Patriots playing spoiler at the end of the season, there's one team that they can spoil the crap out of.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Brett.
Well, it's. I mean, I'd say the Jets, honestly, but
I don't think we play. And I think we play early. I think we play 2 games relatively early. We play you like week 3, and then maybe some other week early before your buys, before either of our buys.
That sounds right, actually, because we normally,
If we get 2 games against Jacoby Brissett, let's go.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would root for too. You don't want to see May.
I want to see Drake not at the end of the season.
Yeah, so that's my take on the whole.
I agree.
Yeah, that's fair, Joe. And we shouldn't count our chickens before they're hatched. We shouldn't automatically assume that seeing the Patriots on our schedules equals a W for our respective teams. And it's good that you reminded us of that because the Bills probably thought they were getting 2 W's against the Patriots last year, and so did the Jets. The Dolphins thought that, and they actually succeeded in that.
Yeah, but they squeaked out by a touchdown each time.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not a gimme game. That's not you blowing us out 30-0.
That's
a tight game through and through. So we'll probably be much more on the blowout side of things this year, but You never know what can happen. This is why they play the games. This is why we love this sport so very much.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to end it there. I think we've argued enough about backup running backs and such tonight. And so the point is, and the theme of the show is that the Patriots are an up-and-coming team, and the Patriots are a team that needs to be watched and taken seriously. But this division is going to come down to the Bills, Jets, and Patriots. And I think the margin of error for these three teams is going to be razor thin moving forward. We lost Anthony briefly. Hopefully he comes back. But look, if you guys haven't already, please drop a nickel on that subscribe button and like our show and comment. We'll always answer your comments in the comment section of things. Now moving forward, I do have a show on my channel tomorrow night on the Finn's Forecast channel. We're going to be predicting wins and loss records for the Miami Dolphins. And on Thursday, Anthony and I, he'll hopefully he'll show up for that one. Anthony and I are going to debut our new show on Thursday where we pick all the games throughout the season. This Thursday, we're just doing predictions. We're going to predict division winners, conference champions, Super Bowl champions. We're going to do all that. And then moving forward, we're going to do picks week after week. And we're going to keep track and see who comes out on top between Anthony and I for bragging rights. So we have a lot of great things coming up for you guys. It's Finn's Forecast, Mad Chatter. Finn's Forecast. That's my new channel. I got 3 other great Dolphins fans to do that show with me. We're really excited about it. We're going to be doing that moving forward. We have some great stuff for you guys planned for you guys this season on Nickel City Mafia. We have great stuff. I know Brett has some great stuff planned for his channel. You want to talk about that, Brett?
Yeah, right now we're kind of in a slow part just because I'm getting my house back together. We had a hurricane come down here, same one that affected Philadelphia, but Hurricane Debbie affected my house pretty bad. We got the podcast studio destroyed completely, but they put new drywall in. They finished all that last week. They painted today, and officially we're back in the podcast studio, and I'm glad to have it. Thank God that everybody was okay, because down just about 15 minutes away from me, they had a lot worse than what I got. And now we're just going to do some more shows this week. We got some more player analysis that we're going to do. Then we'll have a few different shows. Our Overreaction Monday that I'll do. Tuesday, we'll have some prediction shows as well as pregame shows in the season. Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to save that for shows that I will do with the channel for Nickel City Mafia and Red, White, and Ruthless and Red, White, and Bills as well. And then later in the week, we have our Final 24 show that we'll do, as well as the Red, White, and Ruthless on Saturdays, always at 8:30 p.m. on Nickel City Mafia. And then Sundays is going to be a triple header, as I call it. Pre-game, halftime, post-game shows. And then you have the Nickel City Rush Hour that I will be jumping on most of the time at 10 o'clock. I'll be in the comments or on the show as well. So you'll see me pretty busy as well. And we'll find out wherever I'm going to be. But I will let you guys know on my website, gobillspodcast.com. You can click on that and find all of the shows that I will be doing throughout the week.
All right. Sounds good. And Joe, it was great to have you on the show tonight. We really appreciate you joining us, and we hope to have you on soon. On again soon.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it, and I'd wish you all luck, but I wouldn't mean it this season. So,
Joe, I'm going to say this right now, man. For Patriots reps, it's hard to find, and we appreciate you for being on. Welcome to Nickel City Mafia. As our slogan is, where our family business is football. You know your football, man, and we couldn't be prouder to have you. And wish you all the best this season, except for against the Buffalo Bills.
Fair enough, Brett. I appreciate it.
And additionally, Joe and I have our fantasy football draft this weekend. on Sunday. That's going to be fun. I'll post the results on our Discord, and you guys can determine who had the best draft. So look, I'm for Nickel City Mafia. I'm the Philly Fins fan. We have Brett from Go Bills Mafia. We have Joe, and for Anthony, who I think his power went out again. I think there was another tornado that rolled through Chicago. But guys, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Again, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we will see you next week.
Go Bills.
Fins up.